I just thought I'd throw this open. I've placed out the contents, all the mini games from one of the boxes that I just received through the post. And I thought I'd throw it open in case anyone had a preference for me to play, because I might be playing all these over next months, but I don't know if I'll be doing videos for all of them. I mean, if I do a video for each one, it might only be sort of 20 minutes long. Otherwise, if someone wants a more in-depth look at one, so I actually explain a bit more of the ins and outs of how the game plays and so forth, then please say, and I'd be happy to oblige that, because I don't really mind which of these I play, so it's kind of difficult to decide between them. Well, not difficult, but it would give me an excuse to decide between them. One thing I would say though is I don't really fancy playing this one. It's a double game. One's called Survival, one's called Barbarian, and they were both printed, I think, in the White Dwarf magazine originally. I actually had the White Dwarf with this in, and I remember I played one of them at least. There's the hex map, and I just found it they're both solitaire games, but they're very sort of bland exercises in randomly encountering things. I don't know. If someone wanted me to look at those two, I would. And I would go into it, and maybe I'll find that Survival's quite exciting, but I remember being very disappointed with Barbarian. So yeah, okay, I'll do that. If someone wants me to, I'll do that, but let's have a look at the others. Then we've got Valkenburg Castle. I'm not so interested in that because it's essentially it's a fantasy game of adventure and combat in the depths of an ancient dungeon. So essentially it's for 1, 2 or more players, but essentially it's like it's a dungeon crawl as a board game. It's a role-playing session as a board game, and I'm not interested in fantasy role-playing anymore. I loved it as a kid. But again, if someone wanted me to go through that, I would be happy to do it. And I wouldn't play a game say, oh, damn it, before I played it. I would actually enter it as objective as I can. So put my feelings aside and just say, okay, this is the game and what are its merits as in what it tries to do. Then these are interesting. These are called the Knights of the Dinner Table, and some of you may remember the Ace of Aces game whereby you got 2 books, each book showing the viewpoint from a World War I fighter airplane, and each player relates to each other through an ingenious system of paragraphing and dukes away like that. Well, here they're doing it with fancy characters. So again, it's difficult to do solitaire, but I'm interested in doing anything solitaire as an exercise in game investigation. I find it fun exploring games. I very rarely get a chance to play a game opposed, especially these days. I love the game, so I don't mind exploring them just as an exploration, even though it might not be very effective as this kind of like a contest, but that could be fun. So I've got 3 characters there. We've got Bob Knuckles, Brian Teflon Billy, some kind of spell casting wizard. We got Dave L. Ravager. He's obviously a bit of a clumsy fighter. And we got Bob Knuckles. He's got a crossbow, but he's a bit short-sighted. Okay, then here we've got the Viking game. This is an actual historical game called Heventofel, something like that. And I've played that a few times. It's, it's like a chess type game. Not very exciting to me. Then this one's Star Viking. I remember playing this game a few times and I thought it was great at the time. Essentially, I don't think I'll open everything up, but you've got your counters. You've got these not they're tiles, yeah. So they're tiles that you lay out to create the space as you go through it. And because you're a Viking, you know, there's combat and so forth going on. I think it's originally a solitaire game, but you can play it with more than one player. Then we got here Black Hole. This is a straightforward science fiction war game with an interesting premise, is that you're fighting around a black hole. So this represents your black hole, and you have to imagine it as a donut, so it joins back around to itself. I can't do that with one hand. So you have to imagine it, obviously, you know what I'm talking about, like that. So anything that flies off there comes back on there. Oh yeah, sorry, I think it's what they call a torus or something. So this is the inside. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, that's the Black Hole map from 1978. And so it's a 2-player tactical space combat game. Donut asteroid with a black hole in the middle. Okay, so that's that one. That was kind of like relatively amusing to play, back as my memory recalls. Then we got here Sticks and Stones. Does what it says on the tin. You are cavemen fighting mammoths and things like that. So looks like I had to make the map up again myself. Maybe I lost one. Then we got Chitin, number 1, The Harvest Wars. That's micro game number 2 in the series. So that was bugs fighting bugs, and looks like I lost the map for that too, and rebuilt it at some point. I wonder where my maps went. Unless I built a variant, I don't remember. Anyway, that's that one. Ice War. Micro game number 9. This is I think it's set on Earth in the Arctic, so you're fighting out over the Arctic in the future. So you've got kind of like hovercraft tanks and so forth like that. Yeah, you've got the Eurasian Socialist Alliance against the US Army. Okay, micro game number 13, Holy War. I never played this. The counters are not cut out, but it's a 2-player strategic game of religious war. So you have 3 dimensions represented, and you've got these Psyche ships and Starbusters and so forth. It's similar to God's Fire, apparently. I don't think I ever got that game. I can't remember. Okay, then moving up here, we have Robin Hood. This was from OSG originally, and I believe it was put into a box by Avalon Hill and produced that way later. So you've got a map of Sherwood Forest, and you're fighting the evil thingamabob. Star Leader Assault. This is micro game number 21. This one I remember was a bit of a disappointment when I opened it and tried it out. Essentially, do you remember the Fantasy Trip, which was like a the same kind of box as this? It was like a fantasy board game, fantasy micro game as a board game that then had was Melee and Wizard and so forth. So it became into full on like board game stroke role playing game. This is essentially that in space, an attempt to do that in space. So it's the basic set for Star Leader Future Role-Playing Game System. So it's just man-to-man combat in the far future, and I think the map's on a spaceship or something like that. Nothing very special there. Then this one, Vampire, that was a favourite of mine back in the day when I was young. Dracula. Can't remember anything really about how it was played though. That could be fun to dig out for 2 to 6 players. I think it's maybe a bit difficult solo because I think there's hidden movement in it. And Saga, this was great. Age of Heroes mini game. Now, I'm looking at this and being a bit skeptical. Oh look, yeah, I remembered I'd lost the map, so I couldn't play it. It looks like I downloaded a copy of the map from, I expect, good old Board Game Geek. So that one's fun. Again, these are all kind of light games. Some of them fun, some not so fun. But all worth a try. I think, you know, just an evening, why not? Annihilator. This is another... here's a double game. This is another double game, but not from Task Force. This is a micro game, number 14. And no data on that. I can't remember much about them, but they could be interesting. And then lastly, we have Invasion of the Air Eaters, micro game number 12. That's going to be like what it says on the cover as well. So you've got these invaders invading Earth, and you have to counter that. So that's enough of a look. If anyone fancies a sort of half-hour, 40 minutes look at one of these games, I'm happy to give it and play it as soon as I get the chance. Otherwise, I might post up randomly just something that I've picked up when I get a spare evening. Okay, over and out.